All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Kristen Crockett, and once again, we are here live or in replay, depending on when you are watching us. But I am an executive and leadership coach and facilitator, and I do help people and teams expand and lead through self-awareness, through confidence, and through authentic leadership. And so today, welcome because we're talking about getting ready for the next level of leadership, all about knowing your strengths. And this is definitely one of the most important things. If you are looking to make it to the next level of leadership, you have to know your strengths. And so we're going to talk a little bit more just about the 5 ways that you can actually use your strengths to help you advance, but also to help you know yourself as a leader, which is the number one thing as a leader, and why most managers are really struggling nowadays is not knowing themselves, not really knowing what they do better than anybody else, right? What they do really well and what fills them up. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. So, the number one reason why you need to know your strengths is really about awareness. Okay. So it's really for you, but it's for your team, it's for your organization, it's for everybody. Because if you don't know what you do well, then you're going to do all of the things and you're going to continue to do all of the things. And as a hard worker, that's the number one thing, is that we have these doers, we have these super doers that are doing everything, but not necessarily knowing or embracing what they do well, right? Because as somebody who does a whole bunch, which a lot of you all can relate. I know a lot of you all can relate, being this hard worker. What happens is that you have to stop doing all the things in order to go to the next level of leadership. And so the very first thing is understanding what you do really, really well, right? And so it's also not only just what you do really well, but what really fills you up. And those are your strengths. Okay. So those are definitely your strengths. And number two, this is about confidence, because confidence in leadership, like hands down, it's the most important way to be an authentic leader, because you can't be authentic if you don't know who you are, right? If you don't know what you do well, there's no way that you can build a platform of confidence in terms of, marketing your talents, helping your team delegate things. It's really all about standing on this platform of your strengths so that you can excel and expand and lead, right? So, understanding your strengths, let's kind of talk about how that helps you to really live in your zone of genius. Okay. So, living in your zone of genius is not just listening to what people say around you as what you do best, right? Because that is a lot of times what we do is we really just depend on other people to tell us, oh, well, they think I'm really good at this. I guess I'll do this. And for many of you, that's actually how you went through high school. That's how you may have gone through college. Or if you had an advanced degree, maybe that's what because people told you were really good at this. But now it's really time to know and to believe and to embrace what you do really well. So we have to pair that with two things. It's definitely our areas of strength, but it's also the things that really fill us up. And so if you think about the things that you do that you just you could do with your eyes closed, but it also allows you to pass the time. Like sometimes you might go through lunch, you might spend a few hours, it might be all night, where you just are like, where in the world did the time go? Because that is just how much you enjoy doing what you do. That is the difference between someone telling you that you're great at something and also you really feeling this, like this light inside of you that lights you up. Okay. That is really your zone of genius. Okay. And so having that, being aware, having the confidence to know that this is what you do really well, it's time to then start talking to your manager, talking to your team about these things, right? So you can't, a lot of us just hide what we do really well. We hide it because we've been taught this whole lesson about humility, right? To be humble. And here's the thing, what gets you to the next level is actually celebrating your strengths, okay? And so I want you all to definitely look up the definition of humility. And this is something that Stephen Hughes, when I had him come and speak to the fellows, right? So I'm growing the fellows for an entire year, and Stephen Hughes came to speak with them about their money story. And this is something that he had the fellows do, is to look up the word humility, because for hard workers, this is infused in our lives in so many different ways, through our families, through, our communities. Maybe if you go to church, all of these things are telling us to be humble, but I want you to actually look up the definition of humility, because it doesn't necessarily work with the way that leadership actually works, right? It conflicts because it's basically not celebrating yourself. It is not telling people what you do well. It's really just being quiet and playing small. And in order to really live in your zone of genius, you have to tell people what you do well. It just is what it is. You have to tell people what you do well. So it's important that you do that, right? So if I'm working in a team, I'm not just going to be quiet and just kind of like take any work that they give me. I'm going to say, you know what? This might not be the area that I'm really great at. I might be really great. I know that I'm really great in this particular thing. So for example, for me, I love solving problems, but it's not just any problem. It's getting to the root of things, because I don't want to spend energy for weeks, for days, for years working on one specific problem. I want to get to the root and understand why. I want to understand why this person said what they said. I want to understand why this person is leading like this. We really want to get to the root of things. And that is one of my gifts. It's understanding the root cause of things, but also helping people to understand their strengths. That is a gift for me, because so often what happens is that our strengths, we are blind to them. We don't see them as strengths. So we're completely blind to them. And so it's just what we do. It is like breathing. It is just like drinking tea or coffee. We don't even think anything about it. But your strengths are amazing, because they are the things that fill you up. They are the things that make work seem like it's not even work. It makes work just seem fun. It makes it seem like you are just lit up all of the time. That is the importance of understanding your strengths and being able to work in your zone of genius as much as you can, right? Because none of us can really spend 100% of the time in our strengths. There's some things that we have to do, just like chores around the house. Like we can't just, kind of around the house, do whatever we want to do. There's going to come a time where we have to do something that we don't necessarily love. But for the most part, what would it be like to really live in your zone of genius the majority of the time? So that's the importance of knowing our strengths in that way. But we've got a third reason why it's important for us to know our strengths. And that is when it comes down to capacity. Okay. So capacity, which is the doers, super doers, hard workers. Most of the time, you all are just taking what is being given to you. As a manager, you may have learned to just delegate everything, right? You may have learned to just delegate things that you don't want to do. And that is not the way to be an authentic, incredible, emotionally intelligent manager or leader. It really is about knowing your strengths and knowing your team's strengths, so that the team cannot be like that. So we can look at the capacity of the team, right? We can look and say, all right, for this particular person, are they overworked? For this particular team, maybe I can kind of take this work and send it elsewhere. Because that is the one thing that we fail to teach leaders is that they are responsible for the capacity of their team. What are they passing down? And how can you know that? How can you prioritize work if you don't know what the strengths are of the people on your team and you don't know your own strengths? So it really helps to distribute work. It helps to really look at the capacity. And it also helps to not overwork and burn out your team, because that's a lot of what's happening in leadership nowadays is that we are burning out these incredibly talented people by just piling on things, right? And not necessarily managing or leading according to their strengths and their capacity. All right, so let's go into the next one, which is strategic thinking. If I am coming up with a project, then if I know specifically on working on this new initiative, what I do well and what my strengths are, then I can also start to leverage the strengths of the people around me, or I can start to have conversations with other departments, right? And talking about what I might need. Because I know the areas that I'm not so great at, in addition to knowing what I do really well at. Okay. So if I'm going to do strategic thinking, I have to know my strengths. And strategic thinking is definitely one of the things that's going to get you to the next level, because instead of just being a super doer or a doer, you're starting to think things through. You're starting to say, okay, what's my timeline? How am I going to solve this problem efficiently? How am I going to, utilize and leverage my network? Especially when we're talking about managing change, you really have to leverage your network. You have to be strategic about things. You cannot just throw a whole bunch of change on people, right? And so it's important to understand how to do that strategically so that we can also help people manage their emotions. We can talk to them about the changes. We are giving them the vision. We are telling them what's it going to look like? What's the reasoning for this change? What's it going to look like? And then you can help people be a part of the change by having them work within their strengths and then celebrating those small wins when you are accomplishing things that are on, a specific, you've got a time, you've got a deadline attached to them for when things may occur. That may change. And as a leader, sometimes you have to shift those. But this all goes back to knowing the strengths of yourself as well as your team. Okay. All right. And then being an authentic leader. This is essential. If you don't know your strengths, it's impossible to be authentic. Because what happens is a lot of times we are taught to be a leader just like everybody else, the way that everybody else does it. Okay, so we look at people and we say, well, this is what my manager did to me, so I'm going to go ahead and do this to my team, right? And what happens is that we're not necessarily embracing the best habits, the best leadership skills when we are just doing what other people do. So it also prevents us from feeling confident about who we are, because we're not filled up. Okay. At the end of the day, we're not filled up. If we're not filled up and we're not living in our strengths, then it's just leading people places that they may not even want to go, versus really working with your team as a partnership to say, okay, where do we need to go? And where can all of these skills and strengths actually take us? But you've got to know your strengths first, because being an authentic leader means also being confident. It means knowing how to utilize your energy effectively, right? Utilizing it effectively. Are you a person who, for example, loves to just jumpstart, initiatives, loves to come up with ideas? Are you the creative where you're like, okay, I have an idea, let's do this? Or are you the person who really does well at hearing an idea and saying, ooh, I know this person does that, this person does that. Let's put it all together. Let's build this idea. Or are you a person who looks at this and says, you know what? I know some shortcuts. Instead of doing this, what's going to take us, 2 weeks to do that, we could do that in 2 days and will actually get us further along. So do you find shortcuts? Are you that type of person? Is that how you utilize your energy? Are you efficient, right? So you care about efficiency versus long drawn out things. Okay. So those are the different ways that you can actually know your strengths as it relates to energy. And think about it. Like there are some people where they are just ideas people, but they don't necessarily have the follow through. And that's when you include other people on your team that have the follow through. You have the other people that can, that have the shortcuts, but then you also have the other people on your team who are great advisors. They're great guides. They're great consultants. And so if you put all of these people together, that is how you have an incredible team. That is all about knowing your human design, right? Knowing how to utilize energy in the most efficient way for who you are. Okay. All right. So we've talked a lot about understanding your strengths. And this is really essential because one thing that you have to know is that whatever got you to this level is not going to be the same thing that's going to get you to this next level. It's going to require you to not only know your strengths, but to leverage your strengths, to leverage your team's strengths, to be more aware, to understand your capacity, to understand your energy, to be authentic, standing on your skills, standing on your strengths, what you do better than anybody else, and leveraging all of that to get to the next level. All right. So thank you all so much for being with me today. I hope that has helped you to understand how you can leverage your strengths to get to the next level. If you are a leader of color and you are interested in this new program that I am launching, it's a 12-week comprehensive coaching program for leaders of color, then go ahead and you can either send me a DM, you can comment, expand, and I will definitely send you the link to apply to Expand and Lead for mid-September. If you are not a leader of color and you still want to talk about working with me, whether it is, having people, working with your team for team building or for personal or executive coaching for you, then you can definitely contact me about that. You can put lead in the comments and I will make sure that you get a link to understand how you can work a little bit more with me so that I can help your team or you expand and lead as well. All right, everybody. So thank you all so much. And I will definitely see you all on the next live. Have a great rest of the day.